Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Asyhadu an la ilaha illallah, asyhadu an la ilaha illallah. Asyhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah, asyhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya 'alas salah, hayya 'alas salah, hayya 'alal falah, hayya 'alal falah. Qad qamat salah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, la ilaha illallah.
Allahu Akbar. Allahu Akbar. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. Inshallah, starting from tonight, Salat al-Isha will be at 10:15 p.m. Inshallah, we will have our daily dars on the Book of Wisdom by Maulana Salman.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم نحمد ونصلي على رسول الكريم أما بعد رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقهوا قولي. So, continuing on from yesterday's lesson on the different beneficence of Allah upon His servants, upon the different bounties of Allah upon His servants, and how we should observe different bounties of Allah. And the author went on to explain that even not having something can be a bounty at some times. And so the author goes on to say that إِنَّمَا يُؤْلِمُكَ الْمَنْعُ لِعَدَمِ فَهْمِكَ عَنِ اللَّهِ فِيهِ. He says that deprivation hurts you only because of the lack of your understanding of God in it. Many times we're bothered that why can't we have such nice houses? Why can't we have such nice cars? Why can't we have such a high paying job? So the author is going on to telling us that this deprivation hurts you only because of the lack of your understanding of Allah in it. O traveler, the grief and annoyance of your heart when Allah Most High afflicts you with difficulties and hardships are the products of your lack of intelligence. On account of your ignorance, you are unable to fathom the divine mercy, wisdom, and grace underlying your adverse circumstances. If you had not been ignorant, your state of adversity would have been just as pleasurable to you as your state of prosperity. In fact, your pleasure will be greater at the time of deprivation, because poverty and hardship are the share reserved for the special servants of Allah the Most High. The Prophet ﷺ, it was a very common dua of his that, "O Allah, give me death among those who are poor, and also raise me among those who are poor. If we look at the history of the prophets, right, we'll find that all the prophets of the past, their first followers were none other than the poor people, the people that would be those who were regarded to be low among society. You know, the people of Nuh alayhi salam, that's what they used to object. The noble people, right? When Nuh alayhi salam would give them da'wah, he would be like, we're going to follow you. Look at the people who are with you. You know, they're all these ardhalun, these people who are of very low stature. But, you know, it is that state of poverty which pushes a person and that gets him to feel that neediness. And that neediness is what leads him to Allah. The author goes on to say, رُبَّمَا فَتَحَ لَكَ بَابَ الطَّاعَةِ وَمَا فَتَحَ لَكَ بَابَ الْقُبُولِ وَرُبَّمَا قَضَى عَلَيْكَ بِالذَّنْبِ فَكَانَ سَبَبًا فِي الْوُصُولِ. Very beautiful and deep. Sometimes He opens the door of obedience for you, but not the door of acceptance. Or sometimes He condemns you to sin and it turns out to be a cause of arriving at Him. You know, sometimes if Allah gives us a tawfiq to pray namaz, you know, the author will go on to say that sometimes, you know, it could turn out to be something negative too at sometimes. It's a very strange thing the author is saying. So he'll go on to explain, the commentator will explain. Very often Allah Most High opens up the door of His obedience, hence one is able to engross oneself night and day in acts of obedience and extra ibadah, contemplation, devotional exercises, recitation of the Quran, etc. However, because of the lack of sincerity or vanity, or because of despising other Muslims, the door of acceptance is not open. You know, when we feel like we're doing something and we despise other people for not doing that, you know, maybe we're able to fast, some people are not fasting, maybe our friends, our colleagues, we should not look down upon them. This can result that, although we're fulfilling our obligation to Allah by completing the fard action, yes, that is definitely there, that yeah, in a sense that we're fulfilling the faraid and maybe this other brother is not fulfilling the fard. But the author is going on to say that sometimes this, because we're fasting when we're showing off, it may not be accepted in the sight of Allah. Yes, we completed the fard, but what matter? You know, on the day of Qiyamah, if a person did sin in his whole life, he lived all the faraid, he did not pray a single prayer, but he made sincere tawbah towards the end of his life, and he made sincere tawbahs for all the past salahs, and he wanted to make up for that, and he passed away in that state. If Allah wishes, he can go into paradise without any punishment. And on the contrary, if someone prayed his entire life, but he was showing off and he always looked down on people and he was proudful, and then he would always say, look at these other Muslims, they don't pray, you know, they're full of themselves, and what do they think of themselves? They don't feel like they should come to the masjid, etc. If you think like that, sometimes that can be a cause for us being deprived of acceptance. And the author goes on to say that sometimes, however, because of the lack of sincerity or vanity, or because of despising other Muslims, the door of acceptance is not open. Thus your deeds remain unaccepted. Sins frequently emerge from the worshipper. It's common. Although ostensibly the sin committed is a cause for divine rejection on account of the exceptionally high degree of remorse, regret, and repentance, the sinner attains divine proximity. Thus the sin becomes the medium of forgiveness. You know, how many times does it happen that we find, like, maybe there's like a brother who was a convert, or a person who maybe his first 20-30 years of his life he was just very off deen, but that creates such a regret, such a remorse in them, that they have an iman much stronger than such a person who was praying and fasting from the early stages of his life. And that is why, you know, the Prophet ﷺ, he would, you know, we hear this verse of the Quran that innal hasanati yudhibna sayyi'at, that the good deeds, right, it has the potential to change a bad deed, a sin that we may have done in the past, into a good deed. For seeking forgiveness from Allah Ta'ala for a sin that we've done in the past, that sin now becomes a good deed. How? Because of that sin, we're asking Allah to forgive us. A person who, let's say, did not commit a certain sin, he did not, let's say, hear some music, for example, he's never going to seek forgiveness for listening to music, right? But a person who did, he will make sincere tawbah that, I did that sin in my life before, I wish I never did it. And throughout his life, that sin is now being a cause of reward. because he's perpetually seeking forgiveness for that particular sin. So the author, that's what he's trying to say. Sometimes a good act can have a bad outcome if there's no acceptance, and sometimes a sin can become a cause of a good deed. So the underlying message is that we should never look down upon a person that we see that's engulfed in, that's you could say stuck, or that's engaged in evil deeds. If Allah wills, He can change his heart and He can make him do such a tawbah that we can never imagine. You know, at the time of the Prophet ﷺ, there was a Sahabi and a Sahabiya, and what happened was that Shaitan caused a slip, and the particular male and female, they committed the wrong act. So the male, he came forward and he confessed to the Prophet ﷺ that this and such happened. And the Prophet ﷺ turned away from him, and then eventually what happened was that because he testified against himself 4 times, he could have kept it a secret, but he felt so guilty, he went to the Prophet ﷺ and confessed that I did this wrong act. The Prophet ﷺ, he ordered that he be stoned to death, right? Then after that again, that lady also, she also felt remorse. That was a Sahaba. They did wrong acts. It may have happened from them, but they felt guilty. They had such strong iman. They felt very guilty. She couldn't control herself. So she came to the Prophet ﷺ and she also confessed that such and such sin happened from me. And the Prophet ﷺ, again, initially he was like, think about what you're saying. Turned away from her, but she was like, I'm pregnant because of it too. So then the Prophet ﷺ, he said, okay, go after you deliver your child and come back. She, from her own side, after she delivered the baby, she came to the Prophet ﷺ and she said, and she was so, again, she just had that regret inside of her heart, and she just couldn't control herself. She came to the Prophet ﷺ and then she told the Prophet ﷺ, here's a child now, right? So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, sent her away again. He's like, no, he's going to need someone to, breastfeed her and to give her feed her milk, feed the child milk. So, go and go away and feed the child milk. And then the woman understood that, okay, you know what, I have to make sure that the child is completely independent of me before I come back to the Prophet ﷺ. So she waited 2 years, and after 2 years she weaned off the child, and she bought some food, and she was making the child eat it to show the Prophet ﷺ, look, now he's all good. Now he doesn't need me at all. The point I'm trying to make is that after that, then the Prophet ﷺ ordered that the woman be stoned. After she was stoned to death, then the Prophet ﷺ went to pray her janazah. And some of the Sahaba, they were shocked. They were like, Ya Rasulullah, you're going to pray janazah upon a woman who committed this evil act? And the Prophet ﷺ mentioned that she made such tawbah, she made such a tawbah that if it were to be spread over 70 people among you, it would suffice on behalf of all of them. So this is one of those places we can see again that the sin that was committed, after a person repents and after he regrets over what he did, it not only turned out, not only was it a bad thing, it turned out to be something which was a cause for more good. So that's what the author is saying. Therefore, the servant should not look at the external form of everything. His gaze should be focused on the inner realities of things. If Allah Most High has blessed one with worship and obedience, one should not despise those who are involved in acts of piety who are not nor consider oneself to be superior. On the other hand, if a sin has been committed, one should not despair of Allah's mercy by viewing the enormity of the external form of the sin. Inshallah, we'll continue on tomorrow with the same section. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala grant us tawfiq and understanding of deen. This deep understanding of deen that the mashayikh had. Subhanallah bihamdihi, subhanakallahumma bihamdika, ashhadu an la ilaha illa anta, astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk.